right, we're live.
Welcome to the Better Homes and Gardens podcast.
Yes, welcome to the Better Homes and Gardens. We'd like to tell you what to do in the kitchen so that way you can make good food and become the Obama chef so you can drown in a lake somewhere one day.
Oh, no. Gosh.
And we're already there.
That sounds terrible. We hit the ground running, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We did.
I don't even know what we're drinking yet. We went after it.
We started the podcast later than we were supposed to because somebody had to stop at Walmart and get a camera so we could record this. And when they did that, they didn't, let's just say they didn't prep well. They got there too late. Their wife said, "Hey, I want you to help me watch the kids so that way I can start dinner." And I said, do I want to anger my wife by saying no, or do I want to anger Austin by showing up late? And so I chose Austin, for sure.
Fair. That's fair. Well, since we're here anyway.
Yes, sir. Tell us what coffee we're drinking.
We are drinking the Atlas Coffee Club Uganda coffee, which is straight from Ugandaniza.
Ooh.
Or Uganda.
Like
Either way.
Or Uganda. However they say it in Uganda.
However they say it in Uganda. You know, when I was in Iraq.
Oh, here we go.
Well, for those that don't know.
Tell me how you're a hero.
When I was in Iraq, against all odds, I walked to the chow hall one day, and they had guards outside of our chow hall who checked to make sure that the weapons we were carrying inside of the chow hall were not loaded and were on safe. Which I look at that now and I'm like, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Let's spend government taxpayer money on paying people.
It's not their worst idea.
And where it ties in, though, is that they were Ugandans that they hired. So they were contracted Ugandans that stood there with weapons, and they checked to make sure that our weapons weren't loaded on base. But I will say this.
Checks and balances.
We loved the Ugandans.
Yep.
Those guys were they were the friendliest. They were always smart. They were just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Unlike the rest of us who were
I don't think I've met anybody from Uganda. I don't know where is it at in the map of Africa.
It's in that part of Africa next to the other countries there.
So you don't know either, is what you're saying right now.
No, it's in Africa though.
Yeah, I did have I had class with a guy from Nigeria, and he sat right next to me in lab. And so he, of course, born and raised in Nigeria, so he had the real thick accent. And when we came here to listen to what's his name, Pastor from Nigeria.
I don't think we're allowed to say it.
Okay, all right. Anyway, when we came here and we listened to the pastor from Nigeria, who will remain unnamed, Alyssa looked at me and was like, "I literally don't know what he's saying," and I said, honestly, I understood every single word to the exact detail, and I know that it's because my friend Alfred prepared me for 4 years of understanding that Nigerian accent.
Yeah. It's kind of a neat accent anyway, which I don't know how we got to Nigeria from Uganda. That's kind of like being like...
it's the same continent.
Yeah. It's kind of about...
And now we're going into Egypt.
It's kind of like saying, I've got a friend in Canada. Really? I know someone down in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Okay.
That happens a lot with anytime you don't know anything about an area. Somebody would be like, I'm from California. You'd be like, oh, my aunt lives in Long Beach. And they're like, okay, I literally live at the Washington state border. Like, what are you talking? Or Oregon border.
That happens in West Virginia all the time, though. The only difference is whenever somebody says, oh, I've got a family member in West Virginia. I go, where? In Beckley. I go, I grew up 35 minutes north of Beckley. What's their name? I knew some guys with the name Carpenter.
Yeah.
It's just... Yeah, it's the
West Virginia is a small place. One time, my cousin lives in Charleston, and he walked into one of the hotels down there. They were having like a Christmas ball for. He's a lawyer, so it was like fancy. So he goes into this ball, and there's a bunch of cheerleaders there from Robert C. Byrd. And he goes, Clarksburg people. Anybody know Sam Evans? And Austin's about to sneeze or cough. I'm not really sure what he's doing. Just let it out, buddy. Let it out.
I'm good.
Let it out.
Go ahead.
All right, so he walks in. He says, anybody in Clarksburg know Sam Evans? And my wife's sister immediately turns around and says, that's my brother-in-law. And that pretty much sums up how small this state is.
No, that happens all the time. So,
yeah.
But I knew a guy in Florida once. Did you know him?
Yeah, I knew him.
lived there
He
for a while.
moved. Yeah. I just came from the Walmart, and what I can honestly say about the area that I lived in was that as far as having stuff behind locked shelves and stuff where I was trying to buy the camera and it was locked, that was so much less in the area that I lived in, just because I think it's just because it's an older area, a lot of old people, and they don't worry about crime. Now, what you do need to worry about is when you walk out into the parking lot, you need to make sure that you're not going to die from getting hit by an old person in their car, because that tends to be a problem there. But as far as crime goes, not too bad.
I'm debating on whether I should tell a story or not.
I think you should, because this was thrown together
Oh.
abruptly, and I didn't have much material to go off of.
For those of you listening, we already tried to record once, and we had a great time.
Yeah.
But we only got a few minutes of the...
Yeah,
Of
there
it
was
actually
a
recorded.
computer malfunction. So this time we are doubling down. We're recording two different ways, and hopefully that's going to protect us.
But I might add, we've yet to talk about anything we've talked about the last time. So.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, all right, so here's my story. I will just say this. It was an elderly lady who is a relative of mine. She probably should not be driving, but she was. And she was in a Walmart parking lot, and she hit a lady in a wheelchair. At least that's what we first heard, was that
Okay.
she hit a lady in a wheelchair. Well, come to
Alright.
find out, the lady was not in a wheelchair when she hit her. She was in the little, like, scooter
Okay.
that Walmart gives them. And it's embarrassing. Anyway, so
I like where the story's going, though.
she hits the lady who's driving the scooter, and she happens to also hit her in the crosswalk. She hit her so hard that her vehicle stopped. Like, it shut off, damaged the grill, knocked off all emblems, all that fun stuff. And the lady she hit, said, I'm injured. I
Right.
need to call an
Oh,
ambulance.
for sure.
I
For
need-
sure.
I need
There's
to-
no way that happens and you don't call the ambulance.
I need to go to the hospital. To which my beloved relative says, I didn't hit you that hard. She says, you hit me so hard that the glasses on my face flew off. To which my beloved relative said, yeah, but they were just those cheap plastic frames. And now she's fully convinced that this is a welfare case. Because,
She's like, this woman's trying to take me to the cleaners.
in her words, she said she had to go to the hospital because it hurt her back, but she was already riding one of those scooter things, which meant she already had hurt her back.
So she's trying to claim she's damaged goods. She's like, oh, she's damaged goods. You can't charge me for breaking this box of eggs because 3 of them were already broken inside.
So, it's, and I want to pick up on something you said. I don't know if they caught it whenever you said it, but you said I was at the Walmart.
Yeah.
Which I might add kind of gives away the fact that you live in a more rural community.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's just Walmart. But if you
Right.
live in a rural community, you say the Walmart.
Yeah.
The Walmart.
The Ohio State.
Why is it the Walmart? Because it's the center of the community.
Yes.
And one of the leading employers and all those terrible statistics.
And I'm never going back, so I've had it with Walmart. after the overdose incident when I was in the parking lot the last time, and then this time where
that's right.
everything was in. I don't know. It's an awkward vibe in that Walmart. Like I felt like the vibe in the Walmart in Inglewood was so much more like relaxed. I don't know. It's an awkward vibe.
Oh, all right. Well, let's move on because
right.
we've already wasted I don't know how much
that's
time.
That's 10 minutes.
That's 10 minutes.
That's 10 minutes.
10 minutes of time you won't get back.
How was the week? How was your weekend? Because we talked on Friday when we had the failed podcast.
Yeah. My weekend. I mean, it was just my weekend. I'm not even sure what really happened.
That is extremely uneventful.
It was. Oh, no. I mean, really, most of my weekends are. We had Vacation Bible School at the church, and so that was kind of like an all-day thing Saturday. And I taught a little class on that, on like the Who is Jesus. And I'll just be honest, I'm not really good at teaching kids.
But you were a preacher at the age of 14. You should have been a youth pastor.
That's what
That's what you've been told 1,000 times.
Especially when I was young, like, oh, you're a youth pastor. And I'm like, nope. I don't even like the people I go to school with.
Yeah.
I always found myself in a position where I'd rather hang out with, like, people in a nursing home than, teenagers my own age. So, but either way, I mean, these were kids, and they were really good, and I think the class went well. And it was nice because our children's pastor... I mean, I really deferred to him, and I was like, all right, you tell me how long I gotta go, and he's like 10 to 15 minutes. It's like perfect. I can do anything for 10 to 15 minutes, and yeah, so I think it went well, and had several kids, just from the community that aren't really affiliated with the church, but they came out, and yeah, it was good. And then of course Sunday is Sunday Fun Day, and it's where you fight with your kids, drag them out of the house, finally get them to church, and then you're like, why did we even try? And then you're like, oh, I'm the pastor, that's why.
Yeah.
And
you're kind of set.
You're kind of obligated to be there. But no, and then I think everything went well, and had a good time at youth last night. But Sundays are not restful. Especially whenever you're a pastor, it's just
they're not.
A lot of stuff going on.
Well, there's a lot of prep that goes into even getting to there. Also,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But not that I don't enjoy it, and I love.
Well, that's how I took it.
And this is my formal notice of resignation. I'll keep showing up though until somebody from the church listens to this and goes, "Wait a minute, he resigned 2 months ago."
Yes, we're up to some bigger listeners now, so they may hear it. Although our listener retention isn't very good. If you look at the YouTube stats, there's like however many views, but they don't watch it for very long.
Well.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
You can't win.
Maybe it's because we ran it for 10 minutes about old people and driving.
Maybe. But yeah, so that was my weekend. What about you?
Weekend. So, as I told you, we're going to Key West on Friday. We leave for Key West. Actually, we'll leave Thursday because we're flying out of Cincinnati. But
little weekend getaway?
No.
How long are you going to be in Key West, Sam?
I'm going to be there for a month.
Like normal Americans, Sam is taking a month-long vacation in Key West, Florida.
Well, I got to tell you, when Sherman was up front yesterday, and he was like, "There's a lot of people traveling, keep them in prayer, keep them in prayer." I was like, "There's zero chance I would request prayer over going to Key West." Like, could you imagine the audacity of somebody just be like, "I'd like traveling mercies," and they're like, "Oh, where are you going?" And they're like, "Key West for a month." You're like, "I do not. No, I'm not praying for you."
Pray that God keeps me safe while I'm in Key West for a month-long vacation. What?
John Christ has that joke where he says that his aunt texted him and said, "Hey, the Johnsons have a $5 million house on the beach, and there's a hurricane coming. Pray for protection." And he's like, "No, no, I'm not. Not at all.
Don't complain to me. You enjoyed your life 98% of the time, and now a little hurricane's coming through."
Yeah.
I shouldn't joke like that to the guy whose house got pretty mangled by a hurricane.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. To this day, my daughter gets so scared over thunderstorms to this day. Like,
Oh wow.
it was almost, I mean, coming up on a year ago, and she still gets like, if we're outside and the wind starts blowing, she'll get panicky, and we have to like be like, it's cool, it's all good. She used to have to go inside, but now she's starting to be like relaxed. You can still tell it bothers her, but she's starting to relax a little bit more with it. So, but yeah, it was an eventful time.
No doubt.
Imagine just sitting in a house and you just hear like the entire time. That pretty much sums it up. It's dark. There's no electric. You're just out looking out the window like, man, this is really bad. So.
And in the background, Alyssa starts singing, "Almost Heaven."
West Virginia. Yes, I loved Florida though. Although the churches were pretty disappointing. We found one church that we kind of ended up molding in kind of well with, but then they started teaching, which could be a topic one day. They started teaching once saved, always saved. And I was like, it's a little dicey.
Hey, that's a great topic to get into just to get people fired up.
Oh, yeah. Well, what it was he said, yeah, my friend, we got saved at the same time, but then he fell into alcoholism. He's been married and divorced, I think he said like 4 times. And then he said he's still an alcoholic, and he was just like, he still has his salvation. It was like, ooh, that's dicey territory, buddy. That's dicey.
Yeah. I guess that's the that's the struggle with the doctrine of eternal security or once saved, always saved. I mean,
right.
It goes by a plethora of names. But either way, I think that's one of the things is that you realize people define it differently. So,
Right.
like, I have some friends that would staunchly hold to, to that doctrine, but in that situation, they would look at it and they'd go, yeah, he probably never was saved.
Right.
I'm a little more comfortable with that because
I'm more comfortable with how they would word that than what this guy did.
And I mean, full disclosure, like, and I also hate the terminology that you lost your salvation because it sounds like you woke up one day and you're like, what did I do with it?
Where did it go?
No, but I think that we can make intentional choices pertaining to that. And so if you hate that response and want to write a comment, go for it. It boosts the algorithm and everything.
Yeah. Be as hateful.
Be as hateful as
whether it's hate or hateful comments or good comments, it all is good for the algorithm.
But I think at the end of the day, whenever you go, oh, this person is a follower of Jesus and is a Christian because they are saved and they're really following the Lord, that's like, oh, that's great. And then it's like, and so is this guy, and they have no evidence, no fruit in their life that
Right.
show that they're a Christian.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I start going, I mean, we don't want to stand in judgment, but at the same time, I'm like, if he's a Christian,
We have a book that gives us some pretty good guidelines.
he's not doing it very well.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
So
Speaking of disappointing churches,
yes.
What disappoints you about Christian culture?
Well, I'm glad that you asked. So this one,
Did you like that transition?
yeah. So this one may be a bit dicey as well. But you know how somebody gets up and they're absolutely horrible at singing, and it's not like they're even playing the guitar or they're playing the piano.
Yeah.
But they're just singing a cappella.
Mm.
And we had this guy when I grew up in the church I grew up in.
The Lord has laid it on my heart to sing this song.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there as a kid going,
No,
I
he
don't
didn't.
think he did. I don't think that was the Lord.
Yeah, there was a few times where there was this guy that would get up and sing maybe once every other Sunday, and he was so bad at it, and he would do it a cappella, and it was so bad. And let's just put it this way: if somebody got up to preach, every other week, and it was really bad, and they were teaching false things or something, somebody might be like, hey, you need to stop. But nobody does that when it's a singer. Everybody sits there and acts like it's really good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Oh. No, I've been there. I know what that's like, and it's like, oh. and it's. I realize that, especially in like the churches that we grew up in, and that and even CMC now. I mean, like, it's not a mega church by any stretch. Like, we don't.
In smaller churches, it's harder to get like the talent pool. Yeah.
Right. That being said, we're not looking for Chris Tomlin,
right?
Or Michael W. Smith or whoever. Like, just like, well, can you kind of keep a tune?
Dude, it was bad.
And you've got some people that can do that. And I mean, I'll be honest, I think we've got several people in our church that can sing really well. And, which is a blessing. That's awesome. But, yeah, whenever you get the people that jump up and I love that, though.
Yeah.
The Lord has laid it on my heart to sing this song.
Yeah.
And they start singing. It's like,
if somebody just stands up,
oh.
If somebody stands up and they say that and they're going to start preaching or they're going to start teaching something, like everybody's like, I don't know, what's it about? They might start to ask some questions. But with singing, no, they just get like the free ride. They're just allowed in.
Can you imagine like Sunday morning and like we sing our last song and it's getting ready to get turned over to me. I'm getting ready to get up and do the sermon, and all of a sudden like Joe Schmo in the back stands up and says, Pastor Austin, the Lord's laid on my heart to do the sermon today.
Yeah, that would be...
Can you imagine any world in which everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, that
sounds good.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even at that, I would be like, all right, let's talk about it. Maybe we can do that, next week or in a couple weeks.
We'll talk about that one.
Let's talk about that,
Yeah.
But, yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say trios.
No, but at trios, you're getting close to that number 4 with the quartet, and
trios are less evil than quartets.
Yeah, trios are less. Yeah, quartets are like Nero, like I said previously on the podcast that got erased. The quartets are the worst thing that happened to Christianity since Nero. Whereas a trio, it's not bad, because if you think about it, the Trinity is sort of a trio. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great logic.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, what else is going on?
Well, last time we mentioned that guy. I think it's worth mentioning again. The New York Post article about the guy in the dog outfit.
And when you say last time, this is the episode.
Yeah, this is the one that it cut off at 30 minutes and.
Yeah. So there was a New York Post. It was New York Post.
Yeah.
That
article. Yeah, we don't have to talk about it like deep, but just kind of quickly.
But in essence, the guy spends $14,000.
$14,000.
To identify himself as a
collie.
Dog, as a collie.
As a collie.
Yeah, and the dog days are in.
That's how the article
said.
Yeah.
The dog days are in because he went for his first walk in the park.
The ability of the New York Post to try to somehow show that was normal behavior is frightening. Have you ever seen the ones where it's like how fasting might be a good thing, and you look at it, and then the article just comes out, and it just comes off as, we want you to start eating less, and you're going to start eating less because there's going to be a food shortage at some point, and we need you to start to think of it in a good way.
We need you to start intermittent fasting where you take 24 hours off.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of how it came off.
No, it's... listen, if you're an adult in the United States of America, you are free to do whatever you want to do. I mean, so long as you don't hurt people and you don't take their stuff. Yeah. I get that. You have that right. You have that freedom. But at some level, we have to take a step back and go, this is not normal behavior.
Right.
And this is actually mental illness because you are not a dog.
Right.
You, I guess, like to pretend to be a dog, which I've got questions about that. Like I'm not dropping my kids off for you to babysit.
Right. Well, I mean, in that case, it would probably your kids would take them for a walk.
Yeah, my kids aren't taking you for a walk either.
Yeah, they're owner. So how's that work? Does he have an owner?
I don't know.
Because then, that
I
raises
don't
some
remember if
other
the article
concerns.
said anything.
No, I don't remember if it did.
But no, but like this stuff is actually happening.
Do you think he went to the bathroom in the park?
I kind of hope he did. Just so like somebody that is like far left minded looks at it.
Yeah.
Because here's the issue. Even people on the left who I'm might disagree with on multiple issues
socioeconomically
would even look at this and go, that's messed up. That's weird.
Yeah, that's not normal.
But there are some people on this far left that would have to look at it and go, well, that's perfectly normal. I mean, that's what dogs do.
Yeah.
I just want to know if they went over and like cleaned it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's nuts. It is insanity. And the fact that anybody would look at someone who has now decided that they are an animal and actually give credence to this is like, nope, this is perfectly normal. This is okay, folks.
Yeah.
No, this is mental illness. This is like dangerous, and I feel bad for them, but I'm also annoyed that we live in such a culture where the vast majority of people are afraid to say anything about it because they don't want to be labeled as a bigot, or
right.
They don't want to be labeled as judgmental or this, that, the other. No, I'm looking at it saying somebody needs help.
Yeah.
Like in a
sympathetic.
Sincerely, somebody needs help. It is an attention-seeking behavior. It is just trying to find your place in a confusing world, and it's sad. Mm-hmm. It's sad.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a big issue coming up, and we're going to start to see the repercussions of it fairly quickly. The normalizing of the mental illness.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see the repercussions of that very quickly. You already start to see it in some ways, but it's not. I don't think it's as big as what it's going to get, and I think it's going to get very big.
I would love to, in the near future. I have a friend who has a PhD in counseling, I believe it is, and he works in the federal prison system. And I was talking with him. Oh, it's probably been a little over a month ago, and he was talking kind of about this idea that as a federal employee, the federal government is now kind of weighing down on him and being like, no, you can't diagnose these issues. You need to normalize this for these prisoners. And he's like, what? How do you help them?
Yeah.
No, they're having some mental illness that's happening here. And they're like, well, yeah, but just pretend like that's not the case. He's like, no, our psychology books and
that's a wild thing,
and it's madness. So I would love to have him on the podcast and just kind of get his take on a lot of this stuff.
Is he local or is he?
He's out of the state. He used to live here. I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to jeopardize him especially if we do bring him on.
Yeah, if he chose,
because we'd probably want to do it anonymously. But I mean, very educated, very intelligent guy who has a heart to just help people and their mental illness and works with prisoners every day. And he's just increasingly frustrated because at the end of the day, he's being told, yeah, just pretend like that's not a thing and actually encourage some of this behavior because we don't want to be sued. Yeah. Literally, we don't want to be sued.
Yeah, that's wild.
So I mentioned it to him. I was like, would you want to be on a podcast where we could interview you? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. So I would love to do that sometime.
Yeah, since I'm going to be in Florida, I was looking at software to use to do remote podcasts. So if I find something that is good, maybe that's an option to even do it remotely.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Maybe we can bring Joe Rogan onto the podcast.
Yeah, maybe we can bring Rogan. Yeah.
We'll bring Bernie Sanders in.
Yeah. We'll
just
get
get all
numbers
kinds
up.
of views.
Yeah. You know what? We should bring in Kanye and Alex Jones.
Yeah. Just have a grand old time.
Let's see. What else? Oh, you know who I'd like to bring on at some point? Because isn't Brandon Smith? He's doing church planting now, isn't he?
Yes.
I think that would be an interesting.
Yeah.
They talk about church planting, and I haven't talked to him.
He's one of our 3 listeners too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Nice.
He called me after he listened to one.
Hello.
No, that would be fun. I think, and here's an opportunity for you too, if you're listening, to just put in the comments or or reach out to us and of things that you'd like to hear from, or people you'd like to hear from, topics you'd like to hear covered, because we're pretty wide open to discuss just about anything.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I've enjoyed about starting to record these podcasts is that these conversations are the conversations that Sam and I have just whenever we're together.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what we thought was, you know what? Sometimes these conversations, like, yeah, sometimes they're kind of wacky and we joke around a lot. And I would venture to say some of the time you're not sure if we're joking or if we're serious. Good.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it that way.
I'd like to keep it that way. But also at the same time, we like talking about theology and we like talking about the Bible, and we don't agree on everything, and that's okay. We still go to the same church, and we still, like, at least I think Sam thinks I'm a Christian. I think he's close. I don't know.
Go to the same church for now.
For now. He starts a podcast with somebody else. Talks about those crazy churches over in Stonewood.
You just see me. I don't say anything to you. I just stop coming, and you just see me on a podcast with somebody else.
Did Sam ghost me?
So that's probably all to mention for current events. What else? This was poorly planned and put together, but we're making it through. Oh, did you see the guy that directed The Exorcist died?
No.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting, because then it made me start thinking about, you know how like the Binding and Loosing crowd, how they're always casting demons out of believers, or casting demons like, look, you have a spirit of, and then they name some arbitrary thing.
Listen, I grew up going, well, and again, I mean, you referenced it, but I was like preaching when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I got invited to go to a lot of like little backwoodsy type churches that wanted to have youth revivals.
Passing the Rattlers? Did you ever pass the Rattlers?
Or I was actually the gimmick some, It was like, come hear the 16-year-old preacher boy.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a flyer like that. I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I now feel dirty and prostituted
exactly. I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
But no, like the number of times that it was like somebody would get up to sing with the karaoke machine, because that's what we use.
Right.
And they'd put a cassette in, and they'd hit play, and it wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden they're hitting it, and they're like praying against the devil and the forces of darkness that have possessed this karaoke machine.
Yeah.
And it's just like, or maybe you put the cassette in wrong.
Yeah, or maybe.
Maybe you should have rewound it.
Yeah.
It's in the wrong key. Yeah, because that's how you played it. This is...
Alyssa took a 23andMe test.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd already taken one. So we were comparing our results. And, she's a lot more dark complected than I am.
I'm trying to figure out where this is going.
So, well, first off, let me just say, both being from West Virginia, according to 23andMe, we are not related. So I just want to put that out there.
Hey,
That's
there
good.
you go.
That's good news. That's
Yeah.
good news.
That's odd, because her maiden name was Evans, too. That's not true.
Well, anyway,
That was the bonus of
Before
marrying Sam.
this-
She didn't have to change her name.
before this jokester over here just insulted me. But so she always said, because she's so much more, dark hair, dark eyes, she's a lot more dark complected than I am. So she was always like, yeah, it's because my mom said we have Native American. And you know how everybody in West Virginia claims to have some Native American?
Everybody's Cherokee.
Everybody's Cherokee. Everybody says they're Cherokee.
Yeah.
I'm Cherokee. Well, it turns out that she has 0 Native American, and I actually have 0.2% Native American.
Whoa!
So, what's up?
Whoa,
What's
high
good?
roller.
Yeah.
All
And 0.2% Nigerian as well, which was really random.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
where that came from. But there's some speculation that could probably be made on that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that came from. But she did have 15% Italian, so that's probably where the...
I love how this kid came up like right on the
Well, the reason why it came up...
the heels of talking about people casting demons out of things.
The reason why it came up was because when you said, or, you put the tape cassette in wrong, was the other day, as Alyssa was telling the results to her family, they said I wonder why you didn't get any of the Native American gene. And I was like, or your mom lied to you because she doesn't know. Like, or.
So I did the Ancestry a few years ago.
Yeah.
And came back 1% Ghana, Africa.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's spicy.
Not Ugandan, but Ghana.
Nice.
And,
1%.
1%.
Nice.
And so I figured out it was on my mom's side and on my maternal grandmother's side. And so, I mean, that's the one that we mentioned not too long ago. She had passed away. But right after I did my test, I bought one for her. And I was like, here, Grandma, I need you to spit in this tube. And she's like, what's this for?
Spit in the
I was like,
tube,
just spit
shut
in the
up.
tube, Grandma. I don't know why I'm spitting in the tube. Please, just do it. Just trust me. Because I kind of almost figured that she would be like, no, I don't want to do that.
I don't want my DNA on the internet.
But she did. And yeah, so sure enough, that's exactly where it came from. So
Nice.
yeah, it was kind of...
Yeah, those are pretty interesting to see. Mine was really, other than the 0.2% Native American and 0.2% Nigerian, it was pretty
Western European.
Yeah, it was 55% British Irish, with the specifics being around the Greater London area. Mm-hmm. So it was like, well, that's not really surprising. And then the rest was mostly French German, a little bit of Scandinavian.
Yeah.
So
I think mine was mainly
yeah,
England and Wales, some Irish, of course the last name Lynch.
Although
Irish,
I had to
Scottish.
Yeah. I had to make fun of Alyssa's brother because he, in the group message, he sent back, why does it say European? And I put, because we're white, moron. Like, what did you think? What did you think it was going to say?
European?
Yeah.
I thought I was American.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Did you think it was going to say Asian? Like, what? I didn't understand what he thought it was going to say. Why does it say European?
European American.
Where did you think we were going to come from?
Fun stuff.
Yeah. All right, so for the biblical topic, which one did you want to roll with? Did you have a preference? I gave you an or option, and you said you're going to have to drive. And then so I was like, well, you didn't answer the question.
No, I didn't answer the question at all. I'm waiting to see what
You're waiting to see where we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess let's go with Israel and replacement theology. How's that? Is that one good?
Sure.
You good with that one?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So there's a lot of people that would teach, even amongst people that would call themselves evangelical, I would say, would teach supersessionism or replacement theology.
Amen.
And how Israel has been replaced by the church as God's chosen people. And I think that also a lot of times includes places in the scripture where they say, well, it's no longer talking about Israel, it's talking about the church. Mm-hmm. You have any opening thoughts?
I think, well, I've heard people take that approach, but rereading Old Testament passages about Israel and then putting the church in that. So let me say this. I think there's a sense in which you can read something that was meant for the nation of Israel and you can glean solid principles off of that. You know, I mean, like,
yeah.
I think there's a place for that where you'd be like, okay, well, God commanded Israel to da-da-da-da-da. That's probably just some good practical wisdom for all of us, you know, whether we're, you know, Jewish or not. But I have heard people kind of take that and they're like, okay, but now that Israel's irrelevant and the church has replaced them, we can put ourselves into this promise. So this promise is not for Israel. This promise is for the church.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's some dangerous hermeneutical jump ropes.
What I love about that, too, is that it only applies to the good things, and it doesn't apply to a single one of, like, the bad things. You know, It doesn't apply to Zechariah, 14, or 13, maybe, when it's like 2/3 of you shall be cut off, you know what I mean?
You're waiting for, like, the Christians who are getting ready to be put into exile.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
No, and
it's funny how it only works one way.
And I understand in principle the idea, because like whenever you go from yes, it is absolutely true that Israel was to be the blessing to the world. Like these are God's people, and they are to bless the world. I mean, they're basically being used as God's instrument for the world to know Him. And then you have, I mean, biblically speaking, does Israel as a whole reject their Messiah? Yes. And
to this day, yeah.
And Gentiles, we get to benefit from that rejection, and we are grafted in. But I think even in that language, that we're grafted in as opposed to it's not a new tree.
It's almost like, hey, you're not guests here because you're drafted in, but at the same time, it's like, this didn't start with you. You're just kind of brought in, and because God loves you too, you're brought in. But I think it's not a brand new tree.
So, but I understand the idea and like the logic of it, of where somebody would get there, where they go, well, but now, I mean, we are a royal priesthood and a chosen generation and a holy nation as the church, and we are, So I can understand that logic of getting there, but again, we come to this like either or, and it's like, well, no, what if like Israel still has a very unique position and still a very special place, and like these promises are still very real for Israel? And what if the church is also very special and very unique, and that we have been the beneficiaries of this Jewish Messiah as people that were not Jewish, but now we're followers of this Jewish Messiah? So, yeah, but just the whole concept of like, we've done away with Israel now, we are the new Israel.
I can sympathize with somebody like Luther, who at one point, even though the book of Revelation says it's a blessing to read, and Luther, I think there were some writings where he had kind of embarrassed himself a little bit on that, but you can sympathize with somebody a long time ago on that, where there was no Israel, there was very few Jews still in the Middle East. Most of them had gone into Europe at that point, and the idea of a Jewish homeland was just totally gone.
Yeah.
I mean, totally gone. But then, in modern day, I don't see how you see that, and you see the impossibility of it, and how that hasn't happened to any other small culture. This is taken away of the Bible. Like, let's not talk about the Bible. Let's just talk about the idea of that happening, and what are the odds of it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. All those other smaller cultures are gone. They were eaten up. The Babylonians, the Persians, they ate up a lot of those smaller cultures.
Well, and even for Israel to be as small as it is, and surrounded by several nations
hostile,
that hate them, and they're still there.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, I can be sympathetic to that, even up until Israel became a nation again, of somebody going, well, you know what? They're scattered. They're like, no, they're gone. They're irrelevant as a nation anymore. Right. Like,
you can see the confusion,
ethnicity, but yeah, I could definitely sympathize. But I think, I mean, obviously, the interest in Israelology, as I learned was the word.
Yeah, actually, Arnold Fruchtenbaum, is that the guy? I think
yes, that's
I think he wrote a book on that.
Okay, I have no idea.
You don't know who he is?
No, I don't.
All right,
but I'm sure he's a great guy.
Okay.
But that being said, I think just Israel becoming a nation again back in the 40s.
48. Come on. 67
I was sitting
here.
I was sitting here going 46, 48, 48. Yeah, okay. So that brings this whole new interest into, wait a minute, this shouldn't have happened, and it did happen. So maybe we need to reevaluate.
Maybe there's something else going on.
Yeah, maybe we need to reevaluate what's actually happening.
Especially like they get Israel set up. It becomes a nation. This is the first time in over 2,000 years it's been a nation. Because even before they were in the homeland around Jesus' time, they were still under Roman rule. They haven't been free since around Solomon, when they were a united kingdom, would be kind of the last time that they were truly one Israel. And then 1948, they become a state, and then 1967, they get back Jerusalem. It's like there's a lot of things happening here that shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, let's just step outside the Bible and think logically. It just doesn't happen. There's no way it happens.
It is extremely unique.
Yes.
And it is one of a kind in how it's happened. And I mean, I'm by no stretch any kind of an expert in any of this. But I think that if we're going to be experientially honest and even intellectually honest, we have to go, this is unique. Like, this deserves some attention. Even
Right.
if we put all of our attention into it and then we step away and we go, nope, I'm still going to hold to my replacement theology beliefs. Okay, but at least pay some attention. There's something weird here. There's something going on here. And so I think it is important that we at least reevaluate.
Yeah, somebody might be down there. We might have our first guest on
We
the
might
pod.
have our first guest.
If you look at Romans 9, 10, 11, and specifically if you just look at the book of Romans and you're like, okay, this is Paul, and you see how it opens up, and you see that Paul shows kind of the proper created order, where he sort of, it's been a while since I've read Romans 1, so I can't remember exactly, but he kind of explains the man and woman role, kind of going back to the garden with Adam and Eve. And he kind of goes through almost to kind of say, listen, forget the pagan stuff. This is where it begins. And in the book of Romans is like Paul's explanation of who the God of Israel is in a lot of sense. And then he dedicates 3 chapters. Of course, there's no chapter divisions in the original, but there's 3 sections that are devoted to Israel still has a purpose. And like you mentioned earlier with the branch, with the wild branch being brought in the Gentiles. One of the things that I think gets misunderstood the most is from Romans 11, and that's verse 25, where Paul specifically says, I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. There's clearly, if this is talking about the church, which exists at this moment, your sins are to be taken away. When you become a believer, the new creation, you have the baptism that represents, you going under into the grave and you coming out a new creature or a new creation. You have all of that happens. Really, your sins are forgiven at that moment. You know what I mean? The second you decide that you're going to follow Jesus, that's kind of it. And then you continue in that path. Mm-hmm. Not to say you would never do it again, but to say that you are a follower and you're working your way. Not to say you're working your way, but you're working through your salvation. I think as might even say that in Romans. Where does it say that? Work through your salvation. I can't remember.
Or work out your salvation.
Work out your salvation. Yes, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So when it says that, what I can't get over in that passage that gets missed is there's nowhere else in the book of Romans that says Jacob to talk about the collective. Because what you have there is you have Israel, 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 and then it says Jacob to refer to the collective as Israel. And you see that unrighteous Jacob, and I think the prophets even use this a lot. You have unrighteous Jacob, and then you have righteous Israel. When they're not doing too good, it's Jacob. When they're doing good, it's Israel. And it takes you back to Genesis 32 when they're wrestling with God, with the angel. That at that moment there's a wrestling. This is almost like it's Jacob's destiny as the person and as the collective, where they have this wrestle with God destiny, where they won't let him go finally until he blesses them at their darkest hour, because it's night, it's dark, they're at their darkest hour, it doesn't look good, they're at total obliteration, and then finally he's holding on and he won't let go. And then, hey, you're blessed, and now you're Israel, is the language of Genesis 32. And I don't see how, with the crossover of how it goes from talking about Israel to Jacob, you have to tie back to there. I don't see any other way to not tie back to there.
Sure. No, I think that's fair.
But I think it's a very interesting look at the scripture. And I think that alone gets overlooked, because there's no reason why the church should be called Jacob. If by their logic, the church is now taking their place, and the church is now this, the church is now Israel, the church is now the blessed one, it doesn't make sense why they would call the church collective as Jacob. It makes no sense.
No, I think that's fair. And that passage about working out your fear and salvation was in Philippians chapter 2. So it's still Paul writing
yes,
that.
Thank you.
Yep.
I knew it was Pauline.
It was the Pauline.
What else? Where are we at on time-wise? We're at 50 minutes. You have anything else to add to that?
No, I think that, I think some people, I want to be careful how I say it.
You people
out there. No, I think some people can grab a hold of Israel and almost try to fit Israel into everything.
Yeah.
And I think we should give special attention. I think we should recognize the unique role. And even, I think of like Paul, he's the apostle to the Gentiles. And when he would show up in a new city, where did he go? Went to the synagogue.
Yeah.
He went to the Jews first.
Yeah.
And he's very clear about that. To the Jew first. And, but I have been around those who just, like, everything that they look at, they want to make it about Israel. And sometimes I go, Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, absolutely. But even as we read the Old Testament, and you really see it, I think, easily with retrospect, like in light of Jesus, in light of the book of Acts especially, and kind of seeing the spread of the gospel, you look back at the Old Testament and you realize this was always the plan, to bless all the nations of the earth and all the peoples and all tribes and tongues, and that was always the plan. And so, and again, this is even why in the New Testament one of the biggest issues happening that we read in Scripture are the Judaizers going around and being like, no, you must become Jewish to follow Jesus. You uncircumcised Gentiles must become circumcised, and you must start following the law. And the apostles kind of stand up here and go, no, that's not what's happening anymore. And so you do see there is a distinction. And so I don't want to pendulum swing to the place where we go, that in essence where we make the church Israel, but I don't want to pendulum swing the whole other way either.
Right. That's a problem too.
The church is unique in and of itself as well. And Gentiles who have been grafted in and who are following Jesus, like, we're unique in and of ourselves, but also recognize that Israel's very unique too. And I think, as with most things, I'm always going to come to this place where I go, you've got to have a balance. You've got to be able to look at it and go, it's not one or the other. Like, sometimes these things fit together really nicely, and sometimes they just hold this tension. And tension is okay. So, I don't know. That's all I would
and I think, in particular, too, if you look at the whole of Genesis is filled with sibling rivalry, and there's this push and pull with Genesis and sibling rivalry. And you look at the story of Jacob and the marriage to Leah. It wasn't the original intended bride. It was supposed to be Rachel, who he loved more. He was more attracted to her, loved her, and ends up being married to Leah. Well,
back to work. Another 7 years.
Leah was a lot more fertile. Leah, not to say that she didn't have any place. She was still Jacob's wife. But Rachel...
She had weak eyes, though. King James right there.
Rachel was struggled with idolatry as she had taken one of Laban's idols. It would seem that way. Rachel had struggled with fertility, and that's kind of almost central to kind of the Jewish, starting back at Abraham, the struggle with fertility. And even if you look at the Jews now, like they don't really, how like there's Christian evangelism, but there's no Jewish evangelism. There's no Jewish outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Paul going to the Gentiles, that was pretty new. It was a big deal. But I think there's a little bit of a look there where you could even see a typology that God has two women and it's okay.
Sure.
There's a whole study on that one, but
yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
No, that's got me intrigued. I want to think about that one some more. I think in summary, what you're trying to say is that as the church, we have replaced Israel, and Israel's irrelevant.
Why have you done this?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're trying to. No. Okay.
No. You've misquoted me. You've misinterpreted. I tell you one thing that is a problem though that goes the other way. You talked about the pendulum swinging, is that then you have people that are like Jewish obsessed. So then you have
like you.
Well, no. You have people that like it always seems like it's one way or the other. Like for instance, we were in Sunday school one time and the Sunday school teacher said, "Is it lawful for the Jews? Should the Jews still practice celebrate Passover?" And one lady was like, "Absolutely not. That's over with. They should not do that. The law's been fulfilled. Paul says this, Paul says that." And after she got done speaking, I just raised my hand and I said, "Let me ask you this. Who here celebrates the 4th of July?"
Yeah.
And she said, everybody raises their hands. And it's like, there's things that we do because it's our culture and our heritage. Mm-hmm. And then there's things that the Jews do because it's their culture and heritage. You can't tell somebody who is a Jew that just because, let's say they become a follower of Jesus, you can't tell them that they have to cast all that to side. It's preposterous.
I would say
as long as they're not trying to work their salvation out, kind of not work, but like working their way towards salvation, like what modern Judaism has done. As long as they're not going into that and they understand that Jesus is the sacrifice, Jesus is the fulfillment of the Passover, Jesus is going to be, he's the atoning sacrifice, all of this thing, as long as they understand that and they accept that, I see no reason why they cannot celebrate Passover, have their holidays. By all means, remember it, please.
Yeah. And that's something we did at the church during Holy Week is we did a Seder meal.
Yeah.
And was it kosher? Not quite, but either way, we did a Seder meal and a Passover meal, and basically the material that I used to teach it from it's from and I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he just puts the material out there for free. But he's Jewish, his family's Jewish, and they celebrate the Passover every year, but they're Messianic Jews.
Yeah.
And so his whole point in doing this was to make it available for Messianic Jews and for Christians that are non-Jewish so that they might see the Passover. Because when you start looking into the whole Seder meal and the Passover, like, you can't miss Jesus.
Right.
He's all over that. And really, I think it can be really reaffirming of your faith to go, no, for sure, this Jewish Messiah, Jesus, this is the one.
It's the meat. It's the meat. You've got the milk and the meat. As was it Peter? Peter talks about the milk and the meat. I don't remember. Either way,
I have to look it up.
Yeah. Either way, whatever. But you've got the meat of the Old Testament and understanding what's really going on, and then you've got the milk of the New Testament, where it's like, well, here's the high understanding of it, and then here's let's spread out and let's really understand this of the Old Testament. It was Paul. Daggone it. Anyway, I think the opposite problem exists too, where you have people like John Hagee who are more about getting Jews to Israel and them being Jewish and then not really evangelizing.
The moon is red.
Yeah.
John Hagee is heavy breathing.
Yeah. He tends to put more of a focus on. Actually, I think he even says that Jews don't have to accept Jesus. I think there was a quote from that where he said that they didn't have to accept Jesus, because even if you go there and you go to the, again, people that don't have the millennial reign view like we do are probably going to disagree with this entirely. But if you look at the moment that Jesus comes back and there's the remnant of Israel left, as like I said in Zechariah earlier, 2/3 went through the fire. As you look at that, and what you see is they still have to accept that it's Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, it's still Jesus. It's a little bit different than me getting down on my hands and knees at this moment and accepting Jesus in my heart, but it's still Jesus. They'll look upon them whom they pierced. You know, it's still Jesus.
Still Jesus.
It's still Jesus. It's just a little bit different of a look than what ours is.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is that Jesus has done away with Israel, and we are Israel.
I'm finding it really hard in my heart not to have hate right now. Yes.
Oh, well.
If you got hate in your heart, let it out.
I think we got it.
There was too much of an influence on me as a young man from the Chappelle show.
Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah, and next week we're going to have Dave Chappelle on here as a guest.
We're having Dave Chappelle.
Make sure you tune in.
Actually, Austin is going to be on here next week, and he wants to talk about how casting your children into the fires of Moloch isn't such a bad idea.
I mean, there's a tension. There's a balance here.
So last time I tried to end the show on a quote, and then our recording just ended up going bad. So I'm gonna reattempt that, so that way we close out the show with the quote again.
Ah, the old John Wesley quote.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, if you want to do, I forgot about that. If you wanted to do the, okay, maybe we'll prepare for that next time. We'll do it. Yeah. Okay. You got anything else?
No.
All right.
I think we covered it.
All right, so what I want to start doing is I want to start ending the show on a quote. And I'm stealing this from Lex Friedman. Do you know who Lex Friedman is?
That's Old Man Friedman's son.
Yes, Old Man Friedman's son.
Yeah.
He's got a podcast called The Lex Friedman Show.
Oh, yeah.
He's an MIT guy, so it's not really, like, he's had some, like, he'll have religious people on, but he's not religious at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's sometimes there's language on the show depending on who he has on there and that kind of thing. But the reason why I like to listen to it is because he has a lot of tech experts or people talk about AI, and like I said, just various. He's had presidential candidates on. He just had RFK on not that long ago. So he's got different people that you can listen to talk for 3 hours and really get to know their position. Actually, there's probably the most interesting one ever was an ex-Soviet spy, and he actually attributed the only reason why he made it out was he became a Christian, because he asked him, well, what happened with this? He's like, well, I became a Christian. I put all that behind me.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that guy still used foul language. Like, he didn't say any F-bombs, but he used a couple foul languages on there. But I guess
some foul linguae.
I guess you've got to go slow over time with some people, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah. So
we're all growing, right?
Yeah, we're all growing. All right, so let's see. This is C.S. Lewis. This is from The Four Loves, and I'm going to end this on this. It says, "We may say, quite truly and in an intelligible sense, that those who love greatly are near to God. But of course it is nearness by likeness. It will not of itself produce nearness of approach. The likeness has been given us. It has no necessary connection with that slow and painful approach, which must be our own, though by no means our unaided task. Meanwhile, however, the likeness is a splendor. That is why we may mistake like for same. We may give our human loves the unconditional allegiance, which we owe only to God. Then they become gods. Then they become demons. Then they will destroy us and also destroy themselves. For natural loves that are allowed to become gods do not remain loves. They are still called so, but can in fact become complicated forms of hatred. That's
Amen.
it.
Love God, love people.